Hey everybody and welcome back. A few weeks back I spent a year in the woods of Stardew Valley, trying to understand my place in nature and to take a break from the fast-paced life of Pelican Town with its nearly 36 inhabitants. I was left with a feeling of melancholy and I felt somewhat rudderless, as I learned that the world truly cared little for my own struggles. Each morning brought new insurmountable trials like getting out of bed, caring enough to go about my chores, trying to stop myself from closing the game, curling up into a ball and crying. So, I decided perhaps it was nature's fault. Today, I'm going to reject the simple life of the woodsman, and instead begin to amass my fortune with more mechanically minded plots and plans. I'm going to become a garbage man. And when I say that, I mean that I'm going to collect the garbage each day and determine just how much income I can generate by wandering around Pelican Town, while avoiding the general, structure of the game. In order to do this, I've installed the Sleepy Eye mod to let me camp near the Joja warehouse and automate, so I don't actually have to do all this heavy lifting every day. I feel like I've already been talking for a long time, but that's just because there was a lot of setup for this little excursion. You may have seen some of it occurring in the background if you were watching, though truth be told, you could just as well listen and ignore the video for this one. Unless, of course, you enjoy the visual of trash prospering from trash, or you want to see the slipshod, industrialized horror that Pelican Town becomes. It's year 2 now, of course, after my little backwoods trip, which means all the materials in the shops are more expensive. I briefly considered turning back time to make my purchases on year 1, but back then I was still just a man in the backwoods slowly coming to grips with my own mortality. No, I would not cheat today. Well, not like that. Besides, if I saw myself in those woods, we both might have gone insane. Instead, I simply took my lumps at Robin and Clint's shops. I need to buy enough material for a recycling machine and a furnace, and then I just blew the rest of my funds on wood for pathing. Since I actually never gathered any copper before, I had to also sleep in the bed overnight so that Clint could teach me the recipe for the furnace. Though I won't give him the satisfaction of teaching me anything on camera here. He's been cast away, so we can continue to just ignore him off in the distance. The reason I wanted these things was to create a loop, a factory of sorts. Trash goes in and valuable products come out. I plan to connect all the garbage cans in town to the recycling machine, the furnace, and my chest back home. Each morning, the contents of the garbage bins will be fed through the pathing like beautiful cedar pipelines straight into the recycling machine and furnace for processing. When the materials are finished being transformed, or if there's no need for refinement, they'll be deposited straight into my chest. I find this to be the antithesis of my previous way of life. No longer will I break my back tilling the dirt for scraps. No, I will simply allow the conveyor belts of industry to carry me to ever greater heights. I will also sometimes break my back tilling up artifact spots though. Unfortunately for me, I didn't have enough wood to make all the pathing I needed. This video wasn't supposed to involve me chopping my way through Cindersap Forest, so I gathered what forageables I had and sold them to Pierre in an effort to afford enough wood to complete my factory. But it was pretty much in vain. Year 2 wood prices are so inflated that it just was not feasible. That meant I needed to start planting seeds from my storage in order to gain the wood I would need to complete my plans. It's somewhat ironic then that I had left the forest for the city, but the bounty of the forest was what I truly needed to advance technologically. And speaking of technology, it seems that we are not alone in this strange universe. I was graced by the strange capsule event on the 7th of spring. Quite interesting since I haven't actually cleared the land on my farm in over a year. I was kind of surprised that the event could even find a spot to drop the capsule. I traveled to the farm to find my alien visitor, but came away with only a stone owl, which I actually also didn't remember being there from the last video. At the end of the day, the owl wouldn't break open and run away, so I called it a win. Certainly, I didn't spend 15 minutes wandering around my overgrown farm looking for the capsule before skulking away with a consolation prize. Certainly not. On the morning of the 13th of spring, I realized I had underestimated the zeal with which Mayor Lewis would evict squatters from his domain. I was rudely supplanted from my camping spot near the Joja warehouse and informed that I was not allowed to stay there overnight before a festival. Of course, I had been given a home when I moved here, but this was to be an exercise in industry inside the city limits. My delicate hands were not meant for field work. However, I did need wood for my machines, so I cut down the few trees standing between me and the bus stop, then waited at the entrance to the town until the disagreeable bureaucrat let me enter the city limits, after which I promptly left, before seeking eggs with the children. I had no need of strawberries, no want for friendship. I merely wished to complete the link between the last 2 garbage cans in town and my recycling operation. Why could this detestable man not simply let me work? By the end of spring, my production lines were complete, and trash was flowing freely into the recycling machine and furnace. I was well on my way to complete urban autonomy. Sure, I stopped to smell the roses every now and then, and I continued to increase my lumber production, but in reality, I could simply spend my days lounging, and let the machines do the work for me now. This was what the computer was supposed to do for man. Let us be free of all our labors and spend time simply existing, pursuing our own interests, perhaps courting a fine member of the community. I had recently heard from one of the young men in town that his father had been a trash collector in the past. I endeavored to gain the affections of the former comrade in refuse. I knew nothing of the man, but everyone likes receiving flowers, right? My intuitions were correct. The waste collector turned soldier was not immune to a fragrant gift, and perhaps it was only a matter of time before something blossomed between us as well. Summer found me continuing to pursue my new relationship. There was little work to be done now that the recycling operation was operational. So I spent those hazy summer days dropping off gifts with the garbage man. He was an early riser, like myself, a kindred spirit. I could meet him at his door most mornings at 7:30 a.m., which was actually super convenient since I usually went to sleep by like 8:30. In the early summer, I also realized that I could begin to incorporate some natural products into my ever-expanding assembly line. When trees are fully grown, the Automate mod will shake them each day, potentially causing them to drop a seed, which I could replant or someday sell. While I had few trees growing in my patch, it made some sense to take advantage of them where I could, with the cost of wood being merely my own energy. So it was that the conveyor belts gained an extension to the east, and the seeds of some twisted form of bio-capitalism were planted. Unfortunately, while my pipeline of industry grew, the first hints of trouble appeared in my relationship with the town's other garbage man. While I had come to appreciate our morning time together, it appeared that I was, at best, Kent's second priority. On Sunday the 7th, I was disappointed for the first time by my dear friend. I waited for hours outside his door with gift in hand before eventually realizing that he was not coming. I should have known I would always be second fiddle to his family, but it still hurt me. I'm ashamed to say I took out my frustrations on his front door with my axe, which didn't do anything because this is just a video game. A few days later, I had decided I would forgive Kent, though I doubt he knew I was even upset. I handed him his gift, then watched from the trees as he walked away. He truly did not recognize my pain. Mere days later, I found another wrinkle in my plan. Kent didn't come outside in the morning when it rained. I sought to transfer some of my sadness onto another, and presented a cruel gift of sticky sap to a passerby. It didn't help me feel better, but it did make him sad. So I guess that's fine. I spent the rest of the month visiting my friend and collecting my cast-off treasures. I even had to build a second chest. I also grabbed the large Junimo plush at the end of the month to decorate my interesting campsite. Fall has always been a beautiful season in the valley. There's something ever so calming about the soft reds and oranges of the grass and leaves. It puts me in a wonderful mood and urges me to greater things. In this case, my next project was expanding my conveyor belt. You see, the Automate mod also plucks blackberries and salmonberries straight from the bushes. Now I'm no simple peasant willing to dig through thorny bushes for a tart and worthless berry, but if it can be automated, oh yes, that will do just fine. Fortunately, I had been building up my reserves of wood, because the pathing to all these active berry bushes would be quite extensive. In fact, I found that I needed to cut down some of my reserve trees to complete the pathing around the despicable pencil pusher's home. I hope he likes my construction project because I think I'll leave it this time. No more cleaning up after myself when the experiment is over. This is what the town is going to look like from now on. Attractive? Hardly. But sometimes greater profits demand the sacrifice of aesthetics. Mayor Lewis must surely know this by now, looking at this town. My rocky courtship of the garbage man continued through fall as I gifted him flowers when I could. Again, I sought him out on a rainy day, unsure if he would ever leave his home. But, standing under the soaking leaves, I came to realize that it could never be real, what I thought we had. And when I caught a glimpse of my former victim, I ran, fearing his retribution. The mayor once again removed me from my campgrounds on the morning of the 16th. Apparently it was some sort of fair this time. Well, now that I had all the wood that I needed, I didn't even bother cutting down trees while waiting. I simply stood, stamping my foot and staring into the town, where tents and games were being assembled. As quickly as I could, I exited the fair. What need of this festival had I? A chance to show off the results of my work? I would sooner keep it secret than let the town know how valuable their leftovers were. I snuck back into the town after the tents had been torn down, the games removed, and the visitors had left. Much like the loner in the woods up north, I merely wished to exist at the fringes, not be forced into the same old song and dance as the rest of the town. Let Pierre win the display. I had business to be about. Unfortunately, it was the very next day that things truly fell to pieces around me. My dearest comrade revealed himself to be just as ignorant as the rest of the villagers. My farm must be thriving. Don't you even know me, Kent? Don't you know what I've been doing for the past year? I'm not here to farm. I'm here to cultivate a different lifestyle, one of a booming economy built on the recycled leftovers of the townsfolk. I thought you were different than Mayor Lewis, always relegating me to the life of a farmer. I thought we were different. At least the Blue Jays were back. Mr. Blue Jay seemed to have found love where I could not, and his family was growing ever larger. What would it be like to be free as a Blue Jay, I wonder, never tied down by the constraints of the human imagination, such as it is? In any case, did anything really change between Kent and myself? Between myself and the town? I would need to do some soul-seeking in the next few days to determine where my place truly was. I kept up the pretenses for a few more days, gifting Kent the blackberries that I found around the town during my morning walks. The golden autumn sky was less calming this year than in the past. I found myself feeling restless, and when I was extradited to my farmhouse like a foreign prisoner, I made a decision. The city life, such as only Pelican Town could provide, was not for me. There was no point in waiting for the many hours it would take for the town to set up the Spirits Eve festival. I decided to simply sleep outside the bus stop. Soon I would be packing my things and moving on. No need to play nice with these simple villagers. The first chill winds of winter brought the kind of peace that I only ever arrive at after making an important decision. I would stay another week or two, long enough to scrounge up more funding, and then I would leave. I had seen on Joja's development form that there was a bridge in need of repair. With no one currently residing in the quarry beyond, it seemed a natural destination for my next sojourn. I would repair the bridge, then sneak off to the north. With no festivals in the mountains, there would be no reason for anyone to wake me in the night and bundle me into a bed I'd never asked for. I considered telling Kent where I was going. Perhaps we could maintain our friendship. But when he told me that Jody informed him I was really becoming a part of the community, I decided it was best to cut things off. This man didn't know me, and even his second-hand reports of my lifestyle were incorrect. While he had been a garbage man in the past, and we shared a love of early mornings, it seemed the gap between us was just too great. I decided to end things. Soon enough I would be away, and apparently, Kent would not miss me. On the 13th of winter, I emptied the contents of my chests into the shipping bin. With only a small backpack, it took me several trips to ferry all my materials from my small camp to the only place Lewis deemed fit to look for produce. While the backwoods had given me plentiful forage last year, I was optimistic about the recycling operation I had set up over this past year. And with my pockets overflowing with cooked foods and raw fish, I was eager to see just how much income I had generated from this little project. After all, this whole experience was supposed to be about making money from trash, I just get a little distracted sometimes, you know? I set up my camp just outside JojaMart, prepared to walk right inside with fat stacks of cash the next day, repair the bridge, and be on my way up north to a new experience. But, 13,000 gold is actually not enough to do anything at Joja, so I can't do that. It turns out the bounty of the forest is more profitable than the bounty of the trash bins of Pelican Town. Once again, the villagers had let me down. And what was worse was that I couldn't even escape them. At least not without a little creative pathfinding. You see, where there's a will, there's a way, and I have it written down in my will that none of these villagers will get a bent penny from me when I die. So I gathered my camping supplies and prepared myself for something truly unnatural. We were going to make our way to that quarry if it meant I had to break the rules a little bit. With the placement of a clever chair, you can hop your way over the minecarts and get into the quarry without fixing the bridge. Normally, it's rather inconvenient trying to get back from here, but since I brought my tent, and since I detest everything the village has to offer, I think I'll make another attempt at finding peace here, in the quarry. Hey, thanks everybody for checking this one out. If you had a good time, consider dropping a like and maybe even leaving a comment. It really does help. I will see you all in the next video.